Tonight, we're honored to have Commissioner Clint Tracy with us. Clint was raised in Cape Girardeau and graduated from Cape Central High. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and holds an MBA from the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana and a master's degree in strategic studies from the United States Army War College. He served on active duty with the Navy for 7 years and is currently serving as a captain in the Navy Reserve as the Commanding Officer, Naval Reserve Military Sealift Logistics Command. After leaving active duty, Clint worked in the timber industry before being recalled to active duty to participate in Operation Iraqi Freedom. After returning home, he was elected to the Missouri House of Representatives, where he served one term from 2009 to 2010. After leaving the Missouri House, Clint won election and is currently serving as the presiding commissioner of Cape Girardeau County, where he resides with his wife Carrie and sons Theodore and Oliver. Tonight, we're happy to welcome Clint, and thank you for your service.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see such a good turnout. I'm not sure, maybe they should have passed the donation bucket on the front end of this deal. But as was said, I'm the county commissioner here in Cape Girardeau County since 2010. Was elected and started serving in 11. So over the past 14 years, it's hard to believe it's been that long. Looking back over what we've done, where we were, and where we are today, it's been seems like it's been very dramatic, the change, especially if you're looking at the skyline in downtown Jackson, right? We've definitely changed that from 14 years ago. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the projects that we're doing infrastructure-wise, and we can talk about what the county's doing as far as emergency operations and those things, and we'll leave plenty of time for questions, because it seems like we've got tumultuous times now, right? If you're looking at the news today, there's a lot of things going on. Besides the election coming up, we've got war in Israel. We've got a lot of things going on. So to zoom in on what we have going on in Jackson, it's maybe a little brighter picture than if you're watching the world news, for sure. So with that, in 2020, we finished up our courthouse. We moved out of our old historic courthouse on the square, built a new courthouse. We went from 1 courtroom to 6. So now with all our judges, there can't be the excuse that we don't have enough room for court, because now we have 6. So that seems to be going well. Anybody been called for jury duty yet? Okay, you got some, lucky you, right? Winner, chicken dinner. It's definitely a better experience than it was in the old building. If you served in jury duty in the old building, anybody done that? Okay, so you know it was almost embarrassing, right? The restrooms were smaller than those in like a camper, right? So the change was much needed. There's better facilities. We can more rapidly administer justice in the new center, and things seem to be going smoothly. So with that being said, we're remodeling the old courthouse. Many people asked, well, what are you gonna do with the old one, right? And since it's iconic, been there since 1908, served us well, but when we moved out, it was time to remodel. We got in there and started poking around, and the bones were good, but we needed to put some money in there to get it back up to snuff so we could use it. So the plan will be the office holders and some of the other departments will move over, hopefully into this year or the spring. We should have it finished up. About a $10 million project in total, so not inexpensive. You can see they're putting new copper on the dome this week. You might have seen the gutters. It looks fantastic, frankly. Not cheap, but it does look good. Hopefully the new copper will last at least as long as the old copper did. So 100 years in, seems to be a pretty good investment. But the operations that will move in there will be the commission. We'll have the treasurer will move over, the auditor, we'll have the highway department, public administrator, and all those offices will be in the new building. Now what we'll leave at the old one will be the recorder, the collector, and the assessor. So if you go to newer built operations in counties, you'll see that those are kind of the three main customer service areas. So when you go to record a deed or pay your taxes, you gotta get an assessment. To do that in kind of one-stop shop is really kind of the vision going forward, to combine those to make it more user-friendly. If you go in the building that we're in now, the administrative building, it's a little confusing. If you come in off of Barton Square, which is ground level across the street from the courthouse, that's actually the second floor, but it's the ground floor from there. The first floor is the basement, and the third floor is upstairs where the collector is. So we'll try to remove some of that confusion and put everybody on one floor where you can easily go on and take care of all the business that you need to do with the county, and then go on about your day. So we look forward to that. Like I said, along with the courthouse, the new courthouse, we've added on to our jail. So we're gonna have about 500 beds. Currently, we've got a little over 200 beds in the current jail, which we call the new jail, which was built in 2000. And we've got an average daily population pushing 300. So the conditions there are such that we're busting at the seams. It's not a good thing, but it's just, it is what it is, right? We don't get to turn people away. The judges have made decisions that, you know, the people there need to be there. So we don't have folks who are there for minor infractions or misdemeanors. They are actual criminals convicted of felonies or awaiting trial, and the charges are such that the judge deems that they need to stay in pretrial confinement. So we'll expand the jail, like I said, to 500 beds, which will allow us, the sheriff, a little more breathing room. It'll be safer. It'll be easier to manage, just all the things that come with modern technology and upgrades. So we're looking at finishing that probably next spring of 25, something like that. So diligent work going on there. At the same time, MoDOT is at work on 61. If you've been through Jackson between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., it's caused
Can't get to whips.
You can't get to whips, that's right. So it's a lot of congestion, but it's kind of fortuitous that those projects happen simultaneously. So we just have to burden the public once and not twice, so we only shut down the road once. MoDOT does, but it's convenient as far as conveniently inconvenient. So just for a shorter period of time, but that will help kind of the flow downtown on 61. Again, that's a MoDOT project, not a county project, but still some of the growth that you see in Jackson. And then our EOC Center. So we have an emergency operations center at the county. It's one of our core functions, is to provide emergency operations in times of natural disaster or otherwise. And so that function was previously in the administrative building in the basement. So we had 2 rooms dedicated to that. If you've ever seen a natural disaster or a government response to one, our footprint was probably inadequate for that. And as we did a review, we said, look, if we had something to overwhelm the county, so we're not talking just a snowstorm, but natural disaster, tornado, we could have an earthquake, those kind of things. We need to be best prepared to not only accept any outside assistance, but to be able to coordinate and operate as our own entity. So kind of the chain of command is the county is responsible. We have our forces, highway department, park department, which are limited, but anything that we could respond to falls on the presiding commissioner, and we as the commission would direct those forces and assets out to assist the public, get the roads cleaned off, that kind of thing. If we're overwhelmed, our next step would be that I would call the governor and say, Cape Girardeau County is in a state of emergency. We've got flooding, whatever the case was, we need additional assistance. So whether that may be the governor may mobilize the National Guard, come fill sandbags, come bring heavy equipment, some of that sort. And then if it's even worse, like you see in Florida, they'll call on the president to enact FEMA and get some federal assistance flowing into the region. So that being said, we really didn't have an adequate place to store some of the hardware that we have, or set up kind of the operations center to be able to kind of orchestrate those activities. So we built the operations center, which is on Veterans Memorial Drive. right next to the interstate, so it's strategically placed that it's near a major highway. We can get to it. It's got plenty of space to house a few folks and have some gear in there and keep it safe. It's supposed to be Category 5 hurricane proof, so hopefully that we never have to test that, but that's the rumor. It's about a $5 million structure, 14,000 square feet, so it's a significant building, and you're welcome to come out and see it on October 3rd. We're going to have an open house, 10 o'clock, and you'll be able to walk around and kind of see what's going on out there. So I want to invite everybody to come out and take a look and see for yourself. Yes, sir.
Is the Highway 61 project on schedule?
I believe it is. I don't think they're behind, so I'm not sure the final date, but I haven't heard any rumblings that there's been any holdups. So, any more questions to this part? Okay, so we'll talk about some more kind of things going on in the county. We've got a couple grants that we pursued at the county park. I like to say that the county park is kind of the jewel of Cape County. It's one of the nicer parks in the state, frankly, probably in the region. A lot of exciting things going on there. One of which is our kind of Veterans Memorial Plaza. Over the years, we've kind of developed that with partners in the VFW. We've got the Avenue of Flags. Now we've got a memorial wall, Freedom Rock. The next two major things that we will do in the next 12 to 18 months will be, we pursued a grant to build a new shelter that will go up on that area with bathrooms. So we'll have kind of a ceremonial place. It's going to be the Veterans Memorial Shelter. Sponsored with the VFW. You'll be able to rent it out, have some outdoor kitchen, so it should be a nice addition for that area if you've ever been up for the Avenue of Flags. When we dedicate a flag for a veteran, it's definitely worth doing. We do it 5 times a year. We put the flags out. Everybody familiar with Avenue of Flags?
Yep.
Okay. So if you haven't seen that, it's a fabulous ceremony attributing VFW eligible Cape County residents. So I do it 5 times a year on major holidays. So that's definitely worth seeing. So the shelter that's going to go, like I said, in the next 12 to 18 months. And then we're going to connect the sports center, the city sports complex, with the recreational trail and put sidewalks through the North County Park to connect those two. So that'll be an additional mile or so of trail / sidewalks, which will coincide with the flags because we'll be able to double up on the Avenue of Flags, the number of flags we had. When we started this, we'll kind of revive the project maybe 6-7 years ago. We had maybe 400 flags, and today I think we're over 900. So we seem to be adding them. It seems to be growing in popularity, and as people are made aware of what's going on, we definitely had tremendous participation in that. So that's a good thing. So that's kind of what's going on at the county today. Looking forward, we're going to have a few changes in office holders moving into the new year. And as I said, as we move out of the administrative building, we'll have some space available in there to do some things. And so one thing that I've talked with the assessor about and that we're looking at is creating a GIS system for the county. And if you're familiar with that, I see Lucas in the back pumping his fist. We'll try to get him corralled into that process. But right now, the problem that I see is that everybody knows GIS is its geospatial information system, where basically you take a map and you can put layers on that map, and there's really no function of government that can't use it, from drawing your election boundary lines to plotting utilities. It can be very informational, and currently that system or that picture is disjointed. You've got the county operating over here, and then you've got the cities kind of operating independently, and there's not a lot of coordination. Well, when I look at the map, there's one map of the county, and frankly, I would say there's one map of the state. I would almost say that the state should own this function. However, getting them to spend money or to be that forward thinking is tough just because of the decision-making process and how that works. However, at the county level, I think we can do it and combine with the cities because we've got enough assets to make that happen, and then share that data and use it, like I said, for whether you're planning utility lines, whatever the election boundaries are, but really just plan for future growth. Like, we know that the county's the residents in the past haven't been interested in planning and zoning, and that's fine, that's up to the people, right? But there's no excuse not to plan for orderly growth. Like, if you would look and say, well, over the past 20 years, the majority of the growth has been actually out in the county. We don't see the population signs on the city of Jackson or Cape really changing that much, but we see a significant growth out in the county. So this GIS system would allow just a better picture to plan for those things and respond to whether it's the city and the water system or sewer system, get those things on the map, build economies of scale, and try to put those things together to work better just as a region. Economic development would be another piece. People say, hey, why don't we have more businesses here? How can we grow businesses? Well, when they come here, they want to know, are there good schools and do I have a place to live, right? Those are two of the first questions that they ask. And if we can answer those in the affirmative, then we've got a shot. And if we're planning for that, it makes us more competitive down the road. So that's kind of looking forward to some things to do. How much time we got?
You're fine.
Okay. Well, well, there's a debate tonight, so we may want to watch.
We'll be out of here.
Okay. Well, at this point, really, I'm happy to take questions if things are on your mind. There's one in the back. Yes, sir.
I'll just go, hey, Clint, are you in charge of knowing stuff about the roads, the county roads and all that?
The county roads falls under the commission. Yes, sir.
I live off Cape Rock Drive out there, County Road 635. And they're building us a bridge, which is really needed, but man, it's taking a long time. It was supposed to be done in August, and now it's.
Push back.
What? I'm sure they found something there that really slowed them down. I mean, is there?
They just stopped
Oh.
working. They tore it down and stopped.
There, something like that.
They just
You know,
never
off the
did.
top of my head, I'm not
You
familiar with that,
stopped.
but I'm happy to look into
Oh, I
that.
don't know that
It's
either.
right
Took
down
that
the
bridge
bottom of
out
Snake
and then
Yeah.
just
Hill,
left
used to be
it.
Snake
That
Hill,
one bridge
and
there.
now we have Prodigy Leadership Academy
Yeah.
up there, so they have to go all the way down to Lexington.
Yeah.
Then in Lexington, they closed Lexington.
Now you gotta go right
Kirkland. So it's been really interesting.
And that might be Cape Special, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So-
it would be.
So if that's Cape Special, they're a separate entity than the county highway department.
Are you over Cape Special?
No. So so everybody know what Cape Special is? I'll give you kind of this is the 101 quick and dirty is. So county roads were originally built as farm to market roads, right? Way to get your goods from the farm to the market. Folks that lived closer to the cities said, well, we don't want our road tax money because we live right next to the city going 50 miles away or 20 miles away to maintain those roads. We want our taxes to stay closer to the city where we live to benefit us. So if you think about any city as, think of a donut, the city's in the middle, the donut hole. The special road district goes outside of the city, which is the Cape Special, and then everything else outside of that is the county. So basically it was instituted to make sure that the money just outside the city limits goes to service those roads and bridges. Now, it gets more complicated because the county voted Prop 1, they called it, I think 2006, and that was a sales tax, and that sales tax was voted in to replace the property tax to make the road and bridge tax zero, right? Nobody here pays road and bridge taxes on your property tax. Because the citizens of the county voted a 1/2 cent and split it with the sheriff to eliminate the road and bridge tax for a sales tax. And as part of that horse trading, the county said that, well, the agreement was made that the Cape Special Road District would be made whole. So every year, They do a calculation and said, if we had our old property tax on the books, it would raise X number of dollars. I'll just say $3 million. So they get a check out of the sales tax for the $3 million, and it grows because of whatever the property in the district appreciates. So they get made whole, okay, out of that sales tax money. And then what's left goes to the sheriff, splits it half with the hard surface. So that's the money that the county uses to pave roads outside the Cape Special Road District. So technically, there's a Cape Special Road District that people live in. They get 100% of the benefit, but don't pay any property tax. That makes sense. So it's kind of a convoluted, yes, ma'am.
So does Allenville and Whitewater fall under that?
No, they don't have a special road district, just outside of Cape.
Just outside of Cape?
Yeah, and it's not exactly a donut, it's not that clear cut, but if you look at a map, you can see kind of the Cape Special. So they've got the fewest number, I think they have 90 miles, and as the city grows, the Cape Special miles decrease. So they've got the fewest number of miles compared to the county. We've got 500 miles of county road. So it's just one of those things that that's the history of it, and that's what it is. So in other places, Cape Special Road, special road districts are not unique to Cape Girardeau County. They're all over the state for the same reasons that we talked about. Folks wanted their local tax money to stay near the cities, which benefits everybody if you're coming to the city. But anyway, so that's the deal with the Cape Special Road District. Yes, sir.
This is a little different subject. Can you address this, I guess, is it the senior property tax freeze?
Sure. So I kind of figured that would come up. So there might be somebody here over 62. And this is a little frustrating, and not because anybody's against the tax credit. Like that's not the deal. So I think it was 2 years ago the legislature said anybody Social Security eligible can get a tax freeze, and it passed. And folks at the county said, well, okay, it's the state makes the rules, and we follow the law, and we follow it, okay? And you know that when you go to register your car, right? You show up the license bureau, and you don't have your insurance, or you don't have your tax receipt, like you're not getting a license, right? You need A, B, and C. Well, this was more like anybody Social Security eligible. So is that 62? Is that 40 weeks paid? Is that SSI? It didn't include teachers. They're not Social Security eligible. So when this out of the gate, it had a lot of problems just because it was very, look, we love local control, so we're not going to complain that it didn't give us the authority, but it just wasn't clear. Okay, so they had to go back and fix it, and they said, okay, we're going to say 62. Okay, fine. So when you look at your property tax bill, it's a component, right? It's 4 or 5 different components of property tax, right? You got your school district, you've got a library district, you got SB 40, you got a seniors, you got the state has a portion, and the county has a small portion too. So there's probably 7 line items of property tax on your property tax. Now, several of those people voted for. Library tax, SB 40, seniors, like everyone voted to have those taxes. Okay, so to freeze them, it's not just as simple as, it seems simple because, hey, I paid $1,500, I'm gonna pay $1,500 forever. But as the assessments go up, so if as assessments go up, your property value goes up, okay? You've got that component of the calculation to get the final tax, and then you've got the tax rate. Each individual library, SB 40, they all have a tax levy, right, that they implement. So the collectors were also instructed that you're going to keep track of the delta. You're going to keep track of the frozen amount when it goes up, and you're going to report that also. Now, I don't know why, because they're not going to get the money. The school district isn't going to get the money that you're not paying, but they're supposed to capture that and quantify it somehow. Okay. So it would have been easier if it was color by number, because then every county knows what to do, and it's pretty simple, but it's not. And it's not like, and so we're looking at it and we're saying, all right, how do we make this happen? And I know that you're probably a lot of frustration, like we haven't heard anything, what are you guys waiting on? Well, it's gotta be frozen first, so you gotta have the 24 if that's the base. Nothing's gonna change for this year. If this is your first year, you're gonna do it. Now, we're talking about ways to say, okay, there's some window of time in the near future that we could pass an ordinance and say, okay, we're gonna go along with this. The base year will be 2024. If you're 62 that year, then you're eligible. And so any increase after 24 would be frozen. So technically, we got all year till next year, because this year's, if we're saying this is the first year it's gonna happen, this would be the base year. Any increase in the 25 taxes would be the abated amount. That make sense? Sorta? Okay. Because you're freezing it, right? So you gotta set the base somewhere. And we're saying like, this is the first year that it's passed as a legislature. So we're saying 2024, when you get your bill, that, if you're over 62, that would be the frozen amount. It shouldn't go up from there, okay? So the internal workings of, I mean, we're talking about how to do this expediently. So I mean, I've heard discussions about other counties where they've hired a software company to spend $1 million that's gonna, you know, let's say save the taxpayers $350 million over 10 years. There's about 1 million taxpayers in that area. So you're talking about a $35 freeze, or, you know, that they're gonna put, you know, not pay. $35.
Oh, there's a lot of holes in that, mijo.
There is, yes.
Yeah,
But
35 years? I mean, who could predict how much growth is that gonna?
Well, we're telling you.
How do you quantify that?
So they're saying, okay, I mean, okay, they're saying in the next 10 years, if there's a 2% increase in your assessed valuation over 10 years, 2 times 10 is 20% increase of your assessed valuation. So that's the estimate, but bottom line is, it's a lot of, I mean, you're gonna freeze your tax, so it's gotta go up from here, right?
Well, that doesn't sound like good money spent, but anyway, go ahead. Yeah. It's $1 million, I mean.
I don't disagree. Yeah, that's the point, right? We're gonna spend a lot of money, and if you say, if your taxes go up 10 years between this year, $10 this year, next year, we spend a lot of time chasing our tail trying to get this thing pinned down and basically created a new system. And it's, you know, so I don't want to misrepresent or mislead folks. I mean, when I heard a property tax break for seniors, like, that sounds like you're not gonna pay property tax, right? And that's not what it is. They're freezing it, but it's, yeah. So it's more of a, unfortunately, it sounds like more of a campaign poster than it does actual help for seniors.
Now, in St. Louis, you have to apply for this?
Yeah, well, so you gotta, that's something, that's part of the discussion. So yes, you do, I mean, you gotta, the collector doesn't know how old anybody is. They just have a property and an address and a tax amount. And that's frankly how the Constitution sets up taxation, property taxation. It's by the nature of the property, not the nature of the taxpayer. So you got commercial, agriculture, residential. That's how the Constitution looks at taxation, property taxation. So this is a different paradigm. We're saying seniors. So that's why it's kind of, you've got to get in there and so create this website. We're talking about being able to, trying to keep it as simple as possible, but you're gonna show an ID, show your, 62, fill out your address and all those things. Hopefully we can do it all online, or provide assistance at the county to help people do online. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And if folks have heartburn with that, I'd love to hear the feedback. But if it's 15,000 people, I don't know that the collector wants to hire somebody new to shuffle 15 pieces of paper, 15,000 pieces of paper and put, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like we can do that easier with a couple clicks. And then even if folks don't have access at home, they could come in and we can help you through the process to make sure that we get the freeze in place, so.
I got a question.
Hold on, I wanna say something first.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Because first, when this first came around, I said, number one, it is a complete failure of Missouri legislators to pass this on to the counties. Would you agree with that?
I think there's a better way to give people tax relief.
Yes. And secondly, it's a failure of the Missouri legislature. And then secondly, it is a complete violation of Article 1, Section 2 of the Missouri Constitution. You cannot give any single entity preference over another entity. It must be applied to all. I'm a senior, yes, and I would love it, yes, but it goes against the Constitution. So when this first came up, of course, I'm on my phone, and kudos, because I text him all the time. And he always responds, and if he's out of state or out of the country, he still replies. But I said, what about this? He said, well, the commission just voted it down. And I said, kudos, why? Because it's a violation? He said, well, because of blah, 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 but nonetheless, we're gonna hold on that it's a violation
Well,
of the Missouri Constitution.
we just hadn't taken any action, so it was, when it was originally passed with Social Security eligible, well, all of a sudden, you've excluded all the teachers, right, because they don't pay any Social Security, so you excluded them from the property tax rate. Well, that's a large voting block, so they had to go back this year and say, well, railroad workers, I mean, it can't be Social Security tied in that sense, because the other part of the bill is tax-free Social Security, right, in Missouri? I think that's the case. Social Security is tax-free. It's coming. I think, not yet, but the bill, I mean, those are the two things I think in that bill. No? Maybe? Okay. I thought it was. So we're looking at it, we're looking at trying to make it simple, because we're not trying to, I don't want you to come in every year and say, here's my birth certificate, I'm still, technically I'm not 62 anymore, I'm 63 this year. And then make it onerous on you to do this process but I don't want to, want to set the expectations. It's not like, I'm not sure you're gonna get a sizable freeze, but hey, over many years, it should add up, right? Say $10 a year for 10 years, it's $100. Don't spend it all in one place.
I got a question. It's regarding the county commission meetings. There's other counties that they have them recorded, all right? And so you can go online, you could access and find out what's going on. Because people can't be there, working, whatever. Can you have these meetings, televised, or recorded or something? And if not, what is preventing you from doing that? Because there are other counties that are doing it.
Yeah. It's a good question. It's just, at this point, we just haven't had the capability to do it. I mean, we haven't done it. Yeah, that's right. So we just, we meet, we take care of business.
I'm not buying, Clint.
Get the minutes. I mean, we put out the minutes.
Well, look, you spent the first 20 minutes talking about all this money you spent on all these government buildings and all these big buildings and all this hoo-ha crap that y'all bought. And now you can't say you can't spend a few bucks on a Go camera or something like that? Come on, man.
Well,
don't feed that crap here, Clint. I'm not buying it.
No, I'm with you.
I'm not buying it.
To put it on Facebook live stream, I mean, that's one thing, and that's fine. It's, hey, here's the meeting, here's when it's on. I mean, we're not hiding anything, but to catalog and then say, hey, I want to go back to, I mean, that's why we have commission minutes. I mean, does the same thing.
No.
They're searchable.
No.
Well, it's a record, official record of the meeting.
Yeah, it is, but no, it's not the same thing. No, sorry. Nope.
We'll consider.
No, make it happen. We want to make it happen. We want you to make it happen. In fact, we want you to make that happen. Because that's what we want.
It does do
Capisce?
Facebook Live.
Not everybody
You're all right,
has
Clint.
Facebook.
I don't care what this guy says about you.
All right, next
We don't have
question.
Facebook.
Anybody have anything?
Oh, and my next question was, I'm sorry, regarding that fancy, CAD drawing, software that you wanna get.
Oh,
for the
GIS?
county. Yeah, how much is that gonna cost?
Well, hopefully we can leverage the expense across the county and the city and spend less than we're spending now.
Did you get a cost analysis yet?
No, we haven't. I mean, this is, like you said, as soon as Lucas wants to come over and help us set this thing up, give us kind of some framework. If you don't know, that's his background, or someone like Lucas. But this is like creating something new. So this doesn't exist. I mean, GIS exists, yes. But the partnership, so we've kind of laid the groundwork with, say, 911. So you guys may or may not remember, there was a big discussion about 911 tax and the cell phones and the PSAPs. Ring a bell for anybody? Okay, so they're emergency operations centers. When you dial 911, they answer the phone. Okay. In Missouri, well, in Cape County in particular, I think we had 4. We had one at SEMO, one at the county, one in Jackson, and one at Cape. Well, it's a 24-hour operation, and frankly, it didn't make much sense that everybody had their own. So, when we remodeled the sheriff's office, we said, let's combine, because we all have to buy the same gear. The money that funded the 911 system was based on copper telephone lines. Who has one of those? One person? All right, so there you go. You had this much money, and then now Jan is the only one funding our 911.
And the price just went
And,
up.
and I'll be honest, I got one too. So there's 2 of us. 2 of us are funding the 911. No, there's more than that. But dramatic, there's probably 10% of what there was at one time. So that revenue stream went way down. So we said, hey, how can we still have to have 911. And you can still vote it. Again, we'll go back to the legislature. They could have said, yes, a cell phone in your pocket is a telephone. It would have been that easy, but it wasn't, so they didn't. And so there was a lot of hand wringing about the number of PSAPs. So some of the advocates said, hey, we'll just use Cape County example. If you go to one PSAP, then we'll say that's a cell phone, call a cell phone a phone, and then that can be the new funding stream, because it makes sense, you're gonna use that device to call 911 in an emergency. So anyway, didn't happen at the legislature. We experienced their decrease in revenue, so we said, what are we gonna do? So we contacted Jackson, and the county have combined. We all use the same hardware, so virtually it's one system, if that makes sense. The city and the county and SEMO, they still have manned stations, so there's still some progress we can make if the city and SEMO would combine with the sheriff, then we'd only have one physical location, but we'd have enough folks to man it. So we made a step. Jackson said, okay, we'll combine. So we've done that. So that's kind of the model that we would look at. What's the GIS system cost? It's Esri or ProWest. I don't know. You want to throw a number out?
For a county?
Yeah.
I don't know how crazy you want to make it.
No, I don't want to be crazy. I just want to be efficient.
Well, it really depends, but what I would like to say is actually a success story that's already happened here at Cape County. So Bob Adams released all the property boundaries for the assessor's office, where you can go in, click on the map, find your property, and you think, big deal, right? The day he released that, he told me that foot traffic from realtors, investors, and people trying to move to the county dropped to 0, because they can do everything they needed online, to the point that when he had somebody retire, he didn't need to rehire the position, they just looked up stuff for people all day. So what that allows the county to do, and I'll tell you right now, when I'm working with investors or looking at putting a second business up or anything like that, if I go to a county's website to try to look up property and they don't even have that, that county drops to the bottom of the list. I mean, Scott County's got a pretty good one. So it does pay for itself, because When you get out to your road crews, you then know, okay, what roads have been bladed, what haven't. You know, I've seen guys go down our county road twice, and my parents down in Whitewater still haven't had their road bladed yet. I'm not saying anything's wrong with our county, but, just a thought there.
No,
So, but there are things you can do depending on how far you wanna go, but it could actually turn into something to where your day-to-day county staff is not just looking up stuff for people. And they're not just, standing there waiting for somebody to walk in their door. Because right now, I'm on the Republican Central Committee. We were waiting for new maps because they got rid of the Oriole precinct and merged a couple of them. Well, we needed new maps to know who could run for those precincts, because where those lines are, in this past August election, we had to wait for the clerk to ask somebody else to do the maps, do somebody else. With this system, they could just make them and release them to people. So it does make the county a whole lot more efficient. It is the next step of getting away from the file cabinets and onto a computer for especially property stuff.
And I guess that's fine until all of our cell service goes down.
Right.
And then I have a question with regards to the GIS maps, because I have requested that my house picture be taken off of there. At what point does it become a violation of, personal security? So, I mean, everything's out there. Like I told Bob Adams several years ago, if there's I'm off the beaten path, and there's a swing set and everything else, so the predator knows he can go right up there and figure out that I've got kids up in the woods, right? And so, anyway, my picture's no longer up there of my home, but, well, it wasn't, I need to check again. So, I have a hard time thinking that people should know this or learn this and have to opt out of it. It seems like we as citizens are always having to opt out of things. You know, I mean, it's right there. A predator's not gonna come in and look through that file cabinet to find out where the kids are playing in the county. Far-fetched? No, Bob Adams went to a seminar right after my question with him, so he learned more about that. But anyway, do you have any, can we opt out of our?
so that's a statute thing. I mean, so technically by the law, I think,
Yeah.
judges, you gotta have a court order. So there's gotta be, I mean,
A court order for what?
to not have your records public, because they're public
No,
records.
right, I understand, that's what Bob and I talked about, records have to be public,
Yeah.
if you collect tax on it per statute, you have to have pictures of it, but that doesn't mean it has to be posted online, they can be kept in the file cabinet.
I'm not sure about that.
I haven't followed up with Bob for a couple of years, so if it has changed,
Go to
it's something
Google
else.
and have your house blurred out.
Well, it's probably changed throughout disadvantage,
I had our
you know,
police
that's
report.
probably how it
I just wrote
changed.
him and said,
you
it
walk
was,
in
I was
the door,
concerned
that's
because
the-
my license
Well, you
was
know,
on
it's always
there, and they just blurred it.
We're always getting screwed.
Good evening,
if you look
Clint.
up that program, it's just-
You and I earlier this year talked a lot about, or had a lengthy conversation one evening about the Trans-American Corridor. And so wanted to follow up with you. It's my understanding, just a few weeks ago, there was a meeting held, I believe at Dalhousie, regarding a new highway running from Van Buren to this area. Kind of related to the Trans-American, although Trans-American's not really coming to fruition. It's a kind of still of a pipe dream, if you will, right now. But it's my understanding there's gonna be a new highway, possibly, running from Van Buren to this area. What can you tell me about that? I think maybe you were present, if I'm not mistaken, or?
I wasn't actually.
Okay.
But I'm gonna find out why I wasn't.
Oh,
No, I wasn't, so I mean, I don't know, was it Trans-American Quarter meeting?
Earl Norman was there.
Okay.
Some of the public officials were there. I think maybe Barry might have been there. I'm not really
Okay.
sure. Maybe John.
Okay, well,
Boss.
so a little background on the
Shanburn.
Trans-American Corridor. You probably never heard of it? Oh, you have? Okay, all right, hey. Well, that's, it was, all right, so it's basically a highway from, let's call it Norfolk to the middle of California, across the country. So, if you're looking at the country and you look at our east-west corridors, you got 80, you got 90, you got 70, which only goes out to Yellowstone, and 40, and then 10. So there's not really one that goes across across through here. Okay. So maybe it was Bill Emerson that actually he was approached about getting, addressing this situation as the country's, because our current infrastructure, the highway system, was built, and it was based on basically an East Coast heavy population. So since the 50s, when Eisenhower started the interstate system, a huge part of our population has moved west, okay? And a lot of those interstates are northern interstates, so technically in bad weather, they're only passable certain months of the year. So if you're looking at the map and you said, hey, if you wanted to do a new infrastructure project for the country, and I get like the cost would be huge, but there's some things to manage that. So what it evolved from was basically an east-west highway on the congressional transportation priority list, along with, there were some others, Avenue of the Saints was one. I think there's a couple others, but over 30 years, that project started at the bottom, so it technically is one of the top 3 at the congressional transportation priority level. Now, that's just because it was put in 30 years ago. I don't know if there's been a lot of serious-minded discussion, okay? So, looking at that with 1980 lens is much different than looking at that project in 2024. So, and I think it's a timely discussion. You heard on the West Coast, we got port strikes, right? So that's gonna affect our economy. Now, okay, buy American, right? But still, many companies, many people have things coming in that are imported into this country. And if you shut down the port operations on the West Coast, this week maybe you don't notice it, but 2 weeks from now, you go to the grocery store and you're like, well, where's the whatever? And then 3 or 4 weeks from now, if they don't get it fixed, we've got real problems. I mean, think about having COVID, same kind of supply chain logistics scenario. You disrupt the flow of goods and the flow of trade, and how do you mitigate that? So, looking at the Trans-America Corridor, not for just an interstate, but if you look at even recent, if you think bigger than just transport, if you think bigger than just a 4-lane highway, if you think high-speed freight rail, a new way to get things across the country in a more climate-friendly environment, basically Norfolk to Middle California, you don't have to worry about. I mean, we get some ice storms in frequently, but most of the year the temperatures will keep the road open. But combined with high-speed freight rail, it would allow the country to move goods and services, another avenue to move freely across the country. Because as you look at 70 and 80, they're aging, right? They're not getting newer, and they're just concrete highways. So you got to put money into them, you don't get anything out. So if you look at a corridor as more of than I said, just a highway, but high-speed freight rail, you tie in electric grids, so we know that our electric grids in the country are antiquated. This would allow, if you thought of a backbone going across the middle of the country, you could tie grids in, shift electricity around, whether you're for solar or not, or the renewables. If you do them out on the West Coast and shine sunlight on a thing or blow a windmill, it charges the grid, it energizes that, it puts the power back to the East Coast, who's now in the dark, it's evening, so they're using more power. So thinking outside the box, it provides an upgraded infrastructure project for the country that I think benefits everybody in a way that probably hasn't happened since the highways were built. Now, the funding piece, it would be tremendously expensive, right? Well, if you start talking about pipelines and electrical grids and freight rail, now you've got something that you can sell. So if you look at the Tennessee Valley model of TVA over in Tennessee during the Depression, they are a quasi-governmental entity, but they generate revenue through they generate power. They generate power from the dam and other things. But if the government, if you charge rent to use that high-speed freight rail and move electricity, now you've got a means to take care of this asset that you've built. And it's not just like a 70 where every 20 years you gotta go, okay, well, let's put another $3 billion in this thing and patch up the concrete. So there's probably no, transportation is affected, military is affected. You could centrally locate or move hardware and assets coast to coast pretty quickly. You don't have to go all, the East Coast is shut down. You don't have to go all the way to the canal to get to the West Coast. You could put something on a train and be across the country pretty quickly. And in today's environment where we're looking at multi front threats, right? We've got the Pacific, we've got China, a near-peer competitor. We've got Europe is now in the Middle East. I mean, there's no part of the world that's not got some kind of conflict. And whether we want to be there or not, we could be involved. And so something like this I think would be a strategic move for the country as well. So it's expensive, all those things, but to not look at it, if you do what you did, you get what you got. And right now we've got an aging infrastructure that costs a ton of money, and I don't know that we're really getting our return on investment. So that's Trans-America Corridor. I know when we talked about it, it seemed, I mean, it's definitely a vision. It's visionary, right? It's something completely new. It's out of the box. But moving forward, the 1950s model interstate system has served us well for 75 years. But how long, what do we do for the next 100 years? So something to think about and have a discussion about anyway. The reason Cape Girardeau is in the middle of this discussion is because we've got the Emerson Bridge here. So we want to bring viability and robust business investment and prosperity to this region. And so that would be one thing to coordinate with this whole plan. So
If my vote counts,
Yeah.
I would vote no to keep it out of Cape Girardeau.
okay. Well, I mean, and that's
Anybody in favor with me? There's a lot more to the Trans-American corridor. There's a lot more to that.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a failing railroad system, federal government owns. Where are they in this plan?
Well, I mean, the federal government owns it or the individual railroads own
Well,
it?
I'm sorry, the federal government.
So the question is about the railroads.
The federal government has money, they're federal employees, aren't they?
No,
No?
the railroad companies own the track. I mean,
They do.
they own the railroad.
Well, they haven't been thinking forward for 40 years, 50 years.
Well,
Okay.
I have a property tax question for that.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm not 62, so I think about it a little different.
Actually, so a lot of lawyers will recommend that you put your property in a trust.
Right.
And actually deed it over to that.
Right.
I haven't read the whole statute. If they put it in a trust, sometimes those trusts outlive the person who originally had the trust.
That's right.
How are you gonna go back and make sure that if somebody passes away, but that trust hangs on for 10 years? Also, I'm aware of properties, because I know how to use GIS, in the county where there's still names on properties from the assessor that have since passed, and that those deeds haven't been.
Right.
Nobody came in and told the county, hey.
Somebody's
Joe
living in
Bob.
grandma's house, right?
Right, so how is the county gonna keep track of that?
Yeah, so, and that's a good question. I just brought that point up today in a discussion that, the collector is not in a position to go through and legally look at trust documents and decide whether or not, that's valid. If you're giving a property tax freeze to an individual, that's not a trust. I mean, these are things that just aren't addressed in the law. So it's up to
The
each.
legislature wasn't thorough.
It's up to each county to make the determination. And, again, like, it would be easy to give everybody a tax break that you could actually put in your pocket and go do something with. This isn't necessarily that, unfortunately. But, we're gonna do our best to execute and try to mitigate some of these pitfalls without having 52 pages of, filling all this stuff out. It needs to be easy. You need to click a box and have an ID. I'm eligible, and things like that come up, and I don't think that was in the discussion on the front end.
So my other question is, so in the 80s, the state normalized taxes to where ag, commercial, and residential were divided up a certain way. Ag went and basically, they didn't get their stuff frozen, but ag property doesn't go up the same way residential and commercial does.
No, it doesn't.
Their tax assessment, all that doesn't go up. That's already created a heavier burden on commercial and residential. Now we're saying some residential, anybody over 62 is also gonna be frozen. We're putting a heavier tax burden on residential below 62, and commercial. Is the tax system gonna be able to keep up long-term, or are we setting ourselves up for failure 30 years from now? And since I'm under 62, I care about 30 years from now.
Yep. So, to your point, and I don't know that we're gonna get too far down the line, school districts across the state have said, because initially our concern was, look, okay, so the county freezes the county portion of the property tax, which is, depending on, I pulled up a property, its assessed valuation is $160,000, so 19% of that puts it on the books at about $30,000, divided by 100, it's a $1,500 tax bill. Of that $1,500, $12 of that was county tax. So our concern was, okay, so the commission, the county governing body has the authority to freeze that tax, that's fine. Well, and then the nuance is that portion of the county's tax is offset by sales tax. The more sales tax we collect, the less property tax you pay. So you could actually freeze it this year. The property tax collected could go down, the sales tax could go up. So we could actually freeze your tax at a higher level than what everybody else is paying. So the bottom line is, the schools around the state have said, if you freeze our taxes, we will sue you. So now you're gonna have a government entity, the schools, suing the government entity, the county. Because they're not okay with losing the revenue based on those things. So I mean, it creates a lot of points of friction unnecessarily, but.
Can I switch gears real quick? I'll probably ask Sheriff Dickerson the same question. There's been a lot of talk about struggles within the Cape City Police Department as far as retaining staff and morale and those kind of things. And Sheriff Dickerson seems to be doing a pretty good job at county. Jackson seems to be doing okay. Is there talk at the county of helping Cape, or how does that work? Or are they telling you, stay out of my backyard, or?
Okay, so the law enforcement in general, I mean, in this area, they get along well, they work well together. So you'll see sheriff's deputies in Cape City. So they'll back up and assist, they help each other out. The issues with the police chief left, so there's an interim, the city has some issues that they're working through. But those, they don't fall under county government or the sheriff. So, they've got to kind of row their own canoe and figure that out. That's not to say, when you say the sheriff helps, if they need backup, if they need assistance, yes, absolutely. So we are there to support and help them in every case. Does that mean that the sheriff's gonna, write the city of Cape a check for law enforcement? No, that's not gonna happen, because that's illegal. You pass the tax to fund the sheriffs, the money's gotta go to the sheriff. Now, can she put people in cars and send those cars to Cape to help out? Yes, I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. So that will continue. But the city's working through some things, and we're a resource if they want suggestions, help, guidance. We're happy to do that. We don't really run from the sheriff, county commission, we don't run a law enforcement agency. So.
Lucas, I wanted to tell you, I actually had an opportunity to ask Sheriff Dickerson that question a few months ago. I was curious about that myself. I do know that they have a lot of their deputies, working these roads to kind of help out the city. And I did ask her if they intended to, well, I asked her if they intended to help the city. I wasn't meaning that they weren't, I was meaning take more of a role in that she would more oversee the entire county. I mean, really it is her county, so, given the struggles that we were having and so on and so forth, she said, well, I already am helping the city. I said, well, I know that. I don't mean that. What I'm saying is, do you see yourself more permanently taking over a larger role in spreading the deputies out on a more consistent basis and kind of filling in where the city is not able to? And she really couldn't answer that question for me. I do know that that's happening in other cities, and so that's really what kind of triggered my
You don't want to be
question.
Bolinger County, right?
No, well, if what you're getting at is, and there, this is also, this has been thrown out, and I've heard people discussing a bit, kind of the county-wide law enforcement. So you've got the sheriff owning the law enforcement apparatus of the county. You got St. Louis County does that, I think, because there's so many small little municipalities that they all can't afford a police force. I don't know that model works here. If I'm the sheriff, I don't know why I would want to do that. Sometimes you gotta take a hard look at, I'm not sure. There have been, in law enforcement, people will go from the city to the county, to the state, to this, people move, right, for a lot of different reasons. If you notice, a disproportionate number of folks are leaving your force, you gotta say why. And the sheriff was in that situation before we passed the law enforcement and tax in this county. Salaries were frozen, she couldn't retain folks. They were leaving to get better paying jobs at other law enforcement agencies. In that case, when we looked at our problem, it wasn't a leadership problem, it was a resource problem. And that's our job to come to the voters and say, look, we've got all the squeal out of this pig we can do. We've stretched every nickel. We're at a point now with, a jail built for 208, and we got 300 people in there. We're being overwhelmed. So we've got to do something different. And so that's the discussion that happened at the county. The city has to go through their own, and I don't work there. I don't represent them. They've got to be able to do some organizational leadership and look at why and what is going on there and try to fix that. I'm not sure it's a revenue problem.
Correct.
If you,
And I think they are working.
so,
I think they are working on the issues that are not related to the revenue problem.
and in that sense, anybody that, we would gladly help. You don't really find a lot of, we'll gladly help, make myself and the county resources available as far as guidance and leadership, and the sheriff does too. If they wanna ask questions and those kind of things, we're more than happy to help them out. I live in the city of Cape, so I've got a vested interest.
If anyone else has a question, raise their hand, because I'm gonna keep out. Change gears a little bit, and I do not know, I haven't looked this up, but can you tell me the history of the health board? I know of at least one other county in the state of Missouri does not have a health board, they only have a health director. And I've not gone down the research, I was gonna text you the other day, and I thought, I'll ask you tonight.
Okay, so we have, in many counties, the health board is a department of the county commission, like the highway department, like the emergency operations. Probably in smaller class counties, I'm gonna have to look, and it may be catch as catch can, but in Cape County, we have an elected health board. So you elect your representatives to that board to run the county health department. The director is appointed by the county commission, so we appoint the director of that board, but the people who make the decisions are the elected officials that you elect.
But my question is, how do we have a health board when another county doesn't? And I don't know about the other 113, I just know that one does not.
The one doesn't, that's a good question, I don't know. I don't know.
Abolish our county health.
That's what I'm wondering. If
I mean,
the just
how,
the
how do you
director-
do that? I mean, I guess if you did an initiative petition, I mean.
Is it statute? I mean, why would we do
The
an
health
initiative
board?
petition?
I've never looked into it, but we had a guest speaker a couple of weeks ago who comes from a county that doesn't have a county health board.
Well, I mean, it's a taxing entity, so it's gotta be covered by state statute. So its organization and operation is outlined in statute. What I'm saying is they don't fall under, I know it's confusing, right? You got the Cape County Health Department, but it's not it's not an extension of county government. Like we have Cape County Private Ambulance, it's operating in the county, but it's not part of the county government, i.e. county commission.
So
But
they're,
the-
so they're their own individual entity?
Yes.
They have no oversight?
Well, the people who the county elects to serve have the oversight.
So, and I don't expect any answers out of you, I'm just speaking out loud.
And I'm just telling you what, yeah.
No,
I'm
no,
telling you
no,
what I
no,
know, yeah.
I'm not here to test your intelligence, trust me. So what you're saying is, do you know who created this county health board if it has no higher jurisdiction to answer to?
Well, they answer to the people.
Well, they
That's-
answer to the people.
Yes. But you have the opportunity to change out Autumn Grimm on a yearly basis?
We appoint the director.
And so how often can you, take that director out or put another director in?
Well, we do it every year. We do it in February, I think, every year. Annually, we.
So if
appoint
someone
them.
else had a vested interest, would you consider that other person?
I think anybody can apply for the job, for sure.
I don't know. I'm just curious.
I mean, it's kind of like, think of the school board, right? They hire the superintendent. Okay, so if the superintendent, they make the recommendation, if you got an elected board of folks making a recommendation, I'd need a pretty good reason not to go with the recommendation of the people that the county elected. Think about it that way. There's a check and balance there. If it had to happen, if there was a good reason, sure. But it would need to be a good reason.
The past 4 years has been good enough. That's personal opinion.
Amen, brother.
Any other questions? David, did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, that roundabout they put out on K and 25, how many millions of dollars was that?
I can tell you that. Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's $2,388,955.
Okay, then my other question is, John and I, we just volunteer at the train. They've got a road there that was probably built in 1820.
Downtown Jackson?
Downtown Jackson, and they support a whole lot of people, and they bring in a whole lot of money for the town. It's a nonprofit.
Yep.
But it supplies a lot of people coming in, staying at the motels, restaurants, and all the rest. And yet we can't even get that road fixed.
The city road?
I'm sorry?
The city road?
Private road,
Private
Yeah.
road.
yeah, that's a private
They
road.
they told me that it was a county road.
A county road.
Yeah.
In the city?
I don't know.
Well.
They just said it was a road that.
It's probably a private road.
In the city.
327, John.
Yeah,
It's at 327.
yeah, because what it is a city road from Old Cape Road to the bowling alley, which is, what's that road right there?
Yeah.
And then from that road, going through the depot to Jackson Boulevard, that's the private part right there, and that's the part that he's talking about, it's bad.
Yeah, it's beyond bad.
But it's a private
But
road.
they spent over $2 million on a road that they really didn't need to.
2 million on the roundabout?
That roundabout, that's more of a headache,
Well, that's that's MoDOT, and that's at that T that, so when you're trying to get changes in MoDOT, so they'll grade projects, and they depend on local input for projects, so if you've got a local input, you can filter that through us. So they grade them. If they have projects where, they'll get a higher grade if there's loss of life, if there are safety issues. So I'm gonna guess that was one that was pushed as a roundabout. I know that hopefully they're becoming more popular, but they're pretty maintenance free. And they keep traffic flowing. How much you wanna hear?
I like that, I'm sorry.
25, you can get there, you can get through there pretty quickly.
Have to work congestion if you get that.
You're out.
Keeps traffic flowing.
Yeah.
Have you tried to go around the roundabout? Have you gone around the roundabout by the courthouse?
Yeah, in downtown Jackson?
Do you think everybody takes a turn?
Every day. Well,
No.
Okay,
You get 16 cars and you have
They
to
don't pay
wait till
attention.
there isn't any so you can get.
well,
People don't know how to
Don't
use
pay
it.
attention to what they're doing.
There's a learning curve. no
there is a learning curve. There's some etiquette.
Rush hour.
Sometimes people hit
Yeah.
stop because they don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah. So,
Okay. It's millions of dollars that people don't even know how to do.
I get aggravated with the driver.
I think a light would have been much better.
well, hopefully it's better than it was. Uptown Jackson is getting pretty crazy around 4 o'clock. It gets
You
pretty
don't have the congestion you used to have before then. That's the
And
plus side.
61 isn't helping. Going through there, it's diverted all that traffic, so it's a GoPro, but you know what? We'll get through it, it'll be better. Anybody else?
Years ago, it was terrible.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question regarding the,
Oh, okay. Corridor,
yes, so, the water situation,
water? Yep.
did it take it out from the reservoir that's not
Okay.
being us?
So just so there was discussion about you could put a pipeline in a pipeline you put fluid, so it could be natural gas, it could be oil, it could be whatever and so somebody said, well, you could put water in it if you wanted to sell water. So there was a reaction of, well, now we're gonna drain the aquifer in southeast Missouri, and we're gonna send all our water to fill up Lake Mead. That's not I think the example of you could have a pipeline so you can put whatever you want to in it. If water was $85 a gallon, maybe we would want to send it out there. And if you had a pipeline, or maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. I'm just saying, you would have that flexibility. Even if it was crude oil, you could build some capacity in the country that we don't have, i.e. more refining, to refine our own oil and then move those refined products from east to west coast. That's probably more of the line of thinking. As when you talk to Mr. Norman, you don't know Earl. He really is he's got a lot of big ideas. He's a visionary. This project is, you couldn't sit down and do it in one day. This is a generational project, and it's not just looking at connecting certain pieces of it to start the project over a 50-year footprint would probably be wishful thinking. But if you don't sit down and think about, hey, where are we today and where do we want to go in 50 years? Where do we want to be? You're not going to be there, right? If you don't plan like today. We're right where somebody planned for us to be 50 years ago, or we just ended up here because nobody planned for us to be here 50 years ago. So I think looking forward and so the water piece, it's a pipeline, so you can put whatever you want to in it. Some of the thinking the discussions that I had was when you're having flooding on the East Coast, whether it's Nashville or the Mississippi or whatever, if you could mitigate that flooding, stick that water in a pipe and send it out west, that helps everybody. That's different than putting a straw in our aquifer and sucking that out. But if it's flood mitigation, then that's a different discussion. And you watch the news. We have floods in Nashville. We got floods all over the country. and we don't have any way to mitigate that. So that would be, I don't know, could that be an option? It would be an engineering marvel, but I would say it could be.
That would just cause a lot of other issues.
It
So
could.
it causes more big government, yes. And in 50 years, I'd like to see less government.
Well, it depends. If it's quasi-governmental, like the TVA, like they generate a profit, they provide power to Kentucky and Tennessee. I mean, you know, the point is, if you keep building concrete infrastructure, you just have to replace it, and it's expensive. So.
Yeah, but don't you understand that when we see waste in government and stuff, don't you like look at some of the waste and you're like, holy crap, what are they doing? Do you ever, I mean, it's like, it's insanity.
Every day.
I know. And that's what it is.
But that's infrastructure that generates revenue for the country. People use that, they move goods back and forth, it generates tax revenue, it generates economic activity. I mean, you know, if you go to Russia, you can't, they don't have a train that goes, you know, after World War II, like all their gauges of their railroad gauge, all their tracks were different widths. No, they're the same. You know what it's based on? I was in Italy this summer.
Nothing standardized.
Our railroad is based on the standard width of a Roman chariot, which was governed by, it could be pulled by 2 horses. So the width of that chariot translated to the width of our modern railroad system, which the width of that chariot mitigated or determined our space exploration, because we had to take some of the rockets and pieces of the shuttle through tunnels that were limited by the track size. So the Roman chariot, that distance, had an effect on us going to space. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. So that wasn't planned, but that's what I'm talking about. If you're planning to do things in the future, you gotta have a plan to do it and not just haphazardly. Well, you know, hopefully we have a way to send oil from the East Coast to the West Coast, or, you know, we need to send Abrams tanks or whatever. I mean, it's a big plan, but it's probably, I mean, it's worth considering. I hope we never get invaded in this country, but, you know, stranger things have happened.
Just in the last 3 years, it's too late.
We're being invaded.
It's too late.
So, does that answer your question about the water? Kind of. I mean, I saw a couple bills this year that were like, hey, you can't send water out of the state, which, you know, I don't know if that's, I think that's already maybe happening in Kansas and, you know, anyway.
But these bills are different that Berger put up last year. What he's talking about last year is far more dangerous.
Not taking water out of the aquifer and letting it leave the state, right?
No, Berger's bill did not pass, neither did Dean's, but it'll be back.
Well, I mean, I think Cop Bottling, I think they bottle water down in Sikeston anyway and sell it to Walmart. So it's already leaving the state half a liter at a time. So anyway, one last.
Do we have any plan for this invasion that we're experiencing? I called the governor about 7 times and never got an answer as to.
From the southern border?
Yes, because we are now a border state.
But I mean, every state is. So.
Exactly, but we have governors, we have the guard, we have the highway patrol, we have all these forces that could have stopped the airplanes coming in, the buses on the highways. I mean, you name it, we could have met it at the bus stop. But we are now gonna pay for all these people, and there are children in our school. We are aiding and abetting in our schools.
Governor did a poor job on COVID too. The governor did a poor job on COVID too. He's done a poor job on a lot of things.
But, you know, I mean, what are we
You
gonna
don't want to
do?
get me
How are we
started on
gonna-
Missouri governor here.
We're paying for it.
Gotta vote in November.
Freaking idiot.
Okay.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we know about conflict and illegals?
Now we got him go.
You know, I don't know of it. I don't know. I don't get those reports. I don't know if the schools take those reports. So I don't know what information is out there. I'm not aware of any. So.
Just ask.
Clint, good job tonight.
Thanks.
Good job.